welcome into this Five Clubs conversation. I'm Emma Carpenter, and I'm doing something today on Five Clubs that I have never done before. I'm having someone on the podcast who is very, very close to me, someone I see every single day. She is the youngest Minnesotan to qualify for a U.S. Open. It was in 2021 at the Olympic Club in San Francisco. She's a two-time collegiate event winner, including the Big Ten Championship. She advanced to the NCAA National Championship as an individual 2 years in a row, back-to-back years. It is my teammate, my dear friend, Bella McCauley.
In this split second, your hands make all the difference. It was time for a grip to help them own the moment. Introducing Reverse Taper, technology to stabilize both hands for a more square putter face at impact. The most important split second in golf. Reverse Taper, only from Golf Pride. Respect the grip.
And with that, I welcome in my teammate, my dear friend, Bella McCauley. Bells, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
And thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
I am so excited. You are officially the first ever guest that I've had on who was like a close friend or a member of my team, like all of the above. So this is going to be so much fun. I'm so excited.
I know, I'm excited too. When you asked me if I wanted to join, I was like, of course. Is that even a question?
Well, you've been so supportive of me over the years, and you've just been the absolute best. So now I'm so excited to have an episode that's all about you. So I haven't gotten to see you. I haven't gotten to see you since you got back from California, and we'll definitely get to a little bit more of that later. But how was the trip to California? How was the national championship?
It was amazing. You know, so the national championships was hosted in Carlsbad at Omni La Costa Resort. So just the whole resort experience itself was amazing. The NCAA just really outdid themselves this year, and the venue is amazing. So the experience was incredible. I can't rave enough about it.
Yeah, what was the most memorable part of all of it?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the coolest parts was, you know, throughout the whole season, you're just kind of in grind mode. I feel like the season's very, very long, as you know. And so the national championships was just a really cool time to celebrate the whole year and celebrate what I've kind of accomplished. And to have my family there, my dad came, my grandpa, and then my boyfriend surprised me as well when he came out there. And so to have all of them and obviously coaches and just it was such a special time with them.
Wow. Oh, I wish I could have been there to support you. It's just, it looked amazing. Could not be more proud of you. So definitely want to get to a little bit more of everything that got you there and your experience. But so Bells, you're homegrown, you're born and raised here in Minnesota. You come from a super tight knit family. You and your little sister Reese are a couple superstars, and your dad, who I love and adore, is your coach. Before you became the Bella McCauley around here in the state of Minnesota and nationwide in the golf world, I want to hear the story of how you really got started in the game of golf.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know if we've talked about this before.
I don't know if we have either.
But so my dad, about like 25 years ago, he actually used to teach golf, and he had stopped well before I was even born. But once my sister and I were born, when we became around the age 5 or 6, he really just wanted, he loved golf so much himself. He just wanted to have my sister and I love it that much and experience what he had experienced through the game. And so he kind of just took us under his wing as students, and we've been his students ever since, and we just love it. You know, I think from ages like 6 to 10, still very young, so we're kind of just getting into it, just seeing how golf went. And then by ages 10 to 11, I'm very competitive. So once I kind of was able to start playing in some tournaments and stuff, I was hooked for sure.
Do you remember the first time that you really either touched a golf club, played, or a moment that you had when you really fell in love with it?
You know, I think I don't remember the first time I like played because it was just so long ago.
Mhm.
But one big turning point for me was probably the winter of when I was 10 or something, which sounds so funny because it's like 10. Like how is that a critical moment in your life?
I
But I was it was just kind of a winter where I was like, okay, like, in golf in Minnesota, you're in the domes or you're in indoor simulators, so it's not as enjoyable as being outside. And I was kind of at a crossroads of, do I start taking this game more seriously? Do I really love it? Do I want to play something else? Kind of what I wanted to do. And after that winter of working really hard, I saw a lot of really cool results. And then from there, I was like, you know what? I'm hooked. I want
That's
to continue to see that.
Yeah, that actually makes so much sense that, where, because you're right, in the wintertime, and this is actually something that I want to get to later, growing up in Minnesota, living in Minnesota year round, the challenges that you face having to be indoors. So it's interesting that you kind of made that decision and then saw those results. And then, I mean, there's nothing more motivating than results, right?
Oh, absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself.
So how about when you realized how good you were, how much talent you had? Because you were such a dominant junior golfer so early on and just kept on progressing and getting better and better and better. Did Sean tell you that you were really good, or is it something right away? And did you believe him? How did that go?
That's really funny. I've actually never really thought about that. I would say when I was when I was like 12, 13, starting golf so young, I was able to have some success early on in tournaments, and that's just fun. As a young kid, it's encouraging to have those results right away, and that definitely spurred me on to keep practicing and keep working hard. But I would say when I was about 14, I really hit a point where I was doing well in some bigger junior events, and just even around here in Minnesota, nothing national, nothing crazy, but I was putting down some low 70s and some scores that turned some heads for someone my age, and that definitely was a critical point for me, just having that early on in my career. It's just very encouraging. And then, going forward, it makes it easier to practice. You have a taste of what success feels like, at least on the golf course. And then you're kind of hooked.
That's so true. So true. I think about when I felt like I really started having to click in college. There was like
Yeah.
it was actually the time when I felt 100% the most motivated to go ahead and keep practicing. It's like, wow, this is exactly why I do this. Performing on the golf course, performing under pressure, doing well in these tournaments, everything that I'm working for, when you get a taste of it, it's like it's addicting, right?
Absolutely.
So Sean, Mr. McCauley really, really loved golf, wanted to get you and Reese into golf. Did you play any other sports?
That's funny that you ask. I played so I tried like soccer, and I tried some other sports, but I just didn't. Well, one, I'm 5'2" for everyone out there who doesn't know. So kind of somewhat like basketball was immediately out. I was kind of like, you know what? That's not happening. My parents are short too. Um, and I loved horses, so I did horse riding for a little bit. That was probably as serious as I got in other sports, but honestly, golf just kind of fell in my lap and I loved it. And I didn't like that I wasn't as good in soccer and
Fair.
in other sports. So, I didn't really last too long, and I've kind of always just stuck with golf.
Yeah, no, 100%. Girl, that's totally fair. We all want to do what we're good at, right? And what we have a passion for. It seems like it was just kind of what you were born to do. I know it's what you were born to do. But so and speaking of your childhood and the way that you grew up and your dad getting you into the game, Bells, you were homeschooled up until college.
Mhm.
Was this decision related to golf at all?
No, I get asked that a lot actually. A lot of people wonder if homeschool was related to golf, as that's pretty common
Mhm.
for some collegiate golfers. But actually, my parents just decided from right away, from the get go when I was young, that they were going to take it year by year and wanted to do homeschool. And that was just kind of their decision, just a family decision. Obviously, I was too young to even comprehend really the difference.
Right.
And then as I got older, I just really liked it. We were able to get the social piece that homeschool doesn't have. out on the golf course and doing fun activities and other groups and things like that. And so I just loved homeschool. I loved being able to get school done in the morning and then being able to be social and other activities afterwards. And I think that's like one thing that's crucial about homeschool is if you don't have that social piece, it can be really hard. It can be really isolating. But if you have other hobbies or sports or activities that you can do, it was really beneficial for me.
So true. So true. It's funny you say that because I grew up going to public school. Obviously, my friends who I met in public school, I grew up going to public school. So then I always thought that being homeschooled, you would miss that social piece. But then it was like right away when I met you, it's too funny. It's like whenever we're writing thank you notes to any staff or any golf course, we're like, have Bella write it. She's the best with like knowing how to talk to people. And you've always your maturity when you came in as a freshman was something I was so impressed with. And it was like, clearly this girl spends a lot of time around people, and you definitely did not lack that social aspect at all.
Oh, well, that's really nice of you to say. I will say, I'll take this opportunity to say I had amazing role models in you and Grace and the other seniors. So I definitely learned a lot more about, how to interact around people and just the social aspect and how to carry yourself. Thanks to you guys.
Oh, well, that's really sweet of you to say. And back to homeschooling also, a lot of times, like you said, which doesn't shock me that you get that question a lot, because we're seeing it more and more now too, that parents are choosing to homeschool their kids for golf. And more and more we're seeing young boys and girls, particularly in sports in general, but particularly in golf, who are homeschooled solely so they don't miss out on those primetime hours on the golf course. But would you say that you found being homeschooled to have been helpful for golf, or to have maybe made you a better player?
Definitely. I think golf is definitely one of the sports that one of the reasons I really like it is it's an individual game, and it's really the onus is on you to take, ownership of your game and where you're at and being able to improve. And so you don't need a team, you don't need a set time to practice and waiting for people. It's not like basketball where if you're playing a match or whatever whatever you even call it, I don't even know what you call it, but where you're playing and you have to have your teammates with you, you can just go out and try to improve on golf yourself. And so I think that is one of the reasons golf is just super common for people to homeschool and spend more hours on the courses. It's on you, it's on you to practice and get better. And I think I definitely credit homeschool in just success for me in golf as well. I mean, just having the ability to, knock out school in the morning and then being able to practice and hang out with friends or do whatever I wanted to afterwards was really helpful. It also was, gave me a lot of flexibility in weather too. So sometimes I would do school if it was a really rainy day, I'd knock out a bunch of subjects early on in the day or that whole day, and then the rest of the week I'd have a lot more time to go on the golf course. So with homeschool you can just be really flexible, and that part was super nice.
Totally. That I'm sure that's super nice, that flexibility, and also just habit creating. I'm sure that you learned some really amazing habits. Like you said, golf is an individual sport, and you don't need a team, you don't need a set time, when a lot of people, I'm sure, transitioning, or if you say that you started out with golf camps or you started out with golf private lessons into maybe a high school golf team, whatever it is, and you're used to that structure, but you're not necessarily used to, okay, I have 6 hours free in my day. How do I structure practice? How do I make this time productive on my own? I'm sure that you developed amazing habits at a really young age.
No, that's really nice of you to say. Well, one thing I will say that it transitioned into was even college and just, the time management schedule. Often in high school, from what I hear in public school, it's very structured. You're told what to do. In college, obviously, people learn to have to schedule their own time and time manage really well. And that was something I'd kind of already learned with homeschool and golf, and being able to do that at a young age has really helped me in life.
Definitely. Yeah, that's so interesting. That makes a lot of sense for sure. Now, Bella, you're making me want to homeschool my kids one day.
I'm a huge proponent. It's not for everyone. It's okay.
There's pros and cons to everything, of course.
Absolutely.
But so you mentioned weather, and that's something that I really want to talk about, something that I obviously experienced growing up in Illinois, then moving even further up north. You born and raised in Minnesota, living year round in Minnesota. People are always asking me this question. I'm sure you always get this question. How are kids from Minnesota getting so good? How did you get so good when you can only play for 4 or 5 months out of the year, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I kind of try to look at it as a challenge rather than an obstacle, and just it can be a really big asset if you choose to make it one. I really entered I kind of compartmentalized the 2 seasons of winter and summer, and just said, okay, during the winter, I'm going to spend a lot of time working on my golf swing, working on fundamentals, working on things I need to work on that I don't want to in the summer months when I'm on the golf course and playing. And so then once I hit summer, I was able to just enjoy playing golf and enjoy being on the golf course and trying to put down a good score. Whereas in the winter, I was able to just work on swing. So compartmentalizing and making it feel like a positive was really key. And honestly, just a lot of motivation, and just trying to find that motivation during the winter months, whatever it might be, a podcast or a video or whatever it is, just keeping in mind what the motivation is during those summer months where it can get long and boring, and know why you're doing it once summer comes.
So specifically, especially for all of the young junior golfers who might be listening, who are interested in working on their game over the winter months, if they're from the mid Minnesota or the Midwestern area, or anywhere where it gets cold over the winter time, what did a week of practice look like for you? How did you structure that? How many hours did you put in?
Yeah, so I tried to change things up a little bit as much as possible. I have a net in my basement, so I would spend a couple days a week down there, and then we would go to a dome or a simulator the other couple of days a week. I would probably do 2 to 3 hours of practice a day, 6 days a week during the winter, which isn't crazy anything compared to summer, but it was just consistent, and I think that was key. And just creating the time and finding the time to go do that, and it just really paid off, and having in dividends, really, like, just muscle memory was super key. And just I spent a lot of time videoing my golf swing. When I could find a putting green, I would, and then on occasion we'd be able to go down south and play a couple of rounds. But most of the time it was just repetitive. It was just continuing to work on the things that I wanted to work on.
Right. Are you a big proprietor for TrackMan? Do you really like technology, or would you mainly just kind of look at video or feel? How did you feel, especially during the winter months?
So growing up, I almost never used TrackMan. I don't even think I really knew how to use it until I got to college. And I'm just more of a field player. I can see things a little bit better. My dad likes to say I have a pretty good golf IQ. So just like being able to see things and having a good feel on the golf course was more my strength than being super analytical. But I will say, since I've gotten to college, I've been able to use TrackMan quite a bit more to my advantage, and really specifically getting technical with distances, carries, and even just weather or altitude, kind of factoring that in before different tournaments and wherever we might be traveling. So those kind of different things, different tests and whatever. But most of the time, I would say, once I'm on the golf course, I'm not analytical. I'm a lot more field player, and I kind of just go with my gut.
Yeah, I love that. That's super interesting. Do you ever use TrackMan to actually work on your golf swing and numbers, or do you mainly just look at those carry numbers and distances? Because I know, especially when we're all spring, when we're inside and trying to prep for tournaments, carries, distances are what we look at a lot, being able to dial in on how far your clubs are going. But do you work on swing stuff at all?
Sometimes, when I'm specifically trying to work on club path, I have a bit of a tendency to come from the inside a little bit.
Yeah.
And so sometimes seeing those numbers on TrackMan can be helpful for me to have a feel of where I'm at. Sometimes if something feels off in my swing, I'll know that it's probably has something to do with my club path there and coming from the inside again. So I'll pull it out for that. But most of the time, it'll just be used for carries and totals, especially leading up to tournaments when I don't want to be overthinking too much technical stuff within the golf swing.
Yeah, totally. I love that. That's super interesting. That's actually, it's a similar answer to what I give when people ask me what I do in the wintertime. Although it's different from you in that I spent so much, I practically learned to play golf on TrackMan, actually. Super
That's
interesting.
crazy.
And I learned to play golf on TrackMan. And it was kind of like, I felt like looking at numbers made me a field player in a way. Like my coach would be like, okay, now hit a shot where it goes 80 feet high. And I, would do whatever I felt to get it to go 80 feet high rather than 110. And then after I did that, he'd say, okay, so what'd you, like, that worked. You hit it 82 or whatever. What did you feel to get that done? So it was really helpful for me, really worked a lot for me. But I always answer the question in terms of what I work on in the wintertime to actually it's a really good time to work a lot on technique and work a lot on some fundamentals, rather than when you have the opportunity to play golf. Like there's so much to learn out on the golf course that you can't learn when you're not playing, like all about your golf IQ, your course management, your just everything that goes into being a good golfer. A lot of it you need to learn on the golf course. But I definitely answered that question in a similar way to you.
For sure. Did you really enjoy learning golf on TrackMan? That's just so different to me. I'm curious.
I know, well, and it's so different for most people too, because TrackMan isn't even that old. Like it's relatively new. And now Gary Williams did a podcast with I believe it was Ryan Armour and PGA Tour player, and he was saying like, yeah, I'm just kind of learning now about club path and club face. And I'm like, here's a professional golfer who's insane and is just now learning, because that's not what they did back in the day, right? It's interesting to me. And our teammate Megan, like we were hitting one time and she had a golf ball and her club path was like 1.2, and then she was like, wait, so like does that mean I came from the inside or the outside? Bella, I started laughing at her. Like I literally was like, are you joking? Like, are you joking? Like have been one of the best players in the nation for like 10 years and you don't know what that means. And you don't need to. Like you don't need to. So for some people it works. For me, I really liked it. Sometimes it was a little bit of a crutch and I would feel like I would go back to it and like obsess over it more than I needed to. But because it's all about repeatability at the end of the day. But it's just you don't need it. Like different people have different preferences.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's just so interesting because I was more on Meg's perspective, opposite end, didn't really know how to use TrackMan till college. And so that's really cool that you kind of learned it from the get-go.
Yeah. And I feel like it helped me learn a lot about the golf swing. Like whenever I've coached any lessons or anything, like I feel like I know what swing, what delivery to the golf ball produces what kind of shot. So I feel like whenever I can articulate that to someone that I'm helping, it can help a lot. But
well, that would definitely make sense because I feel like one of your strengths, at least that I've noticed, is being able to shape the golf ball or work different shots. And that would definitely make sense if you grew up on TrackMan and knew how to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's something that we did all the time. It was, let's hit a cut, let's hit a draw. Now say you were behind a tree, how much can you draw it? We would play games even, like,
yep.
My coach would call it dial a shot. He'd be like, give me this path and this face and do this and that. But
I love that.
What I should have been working on is hitting it as straight as you, Bella. That's what I should have been working on. Oh, but so, back to the weather, Bells, I would ask if the Minnesota weather has like made you tougher, but I feel like I know the answer to this question because
so bad. I hate the weather. I'm such a freeze baby. You and I, for those that don't know out there, Em and I are definitely the freeze babies on the team. We hate the cold. We hate it all. I will go up like truly almost every single golf tournament I think I played. Maybe 80% of the rounds I played, I started the round in 3 layers.
Yeah. No, seriously.
Like a lot. Like I hate the cold. I'd rather be hot than cold. And so people ask, like, why do you like Minnesota then? And, I think we travel so much, it doesn't seem to necessarily impact that. And plus, when we're here, we're not playing golf outside. I'm like, I just don't like playing golf in the cold.
Yeah, right.
So we just get through that. But yeah, it definitely not made me tougher, but it's okay.
It's so funny. Like the conversations that you and I have had, and then the teams have had with us, because we're always like, how many layers can I possibly put on to swing the club? Like, or it's like 60 degrees and I'll be wearing my beanie, and then Grace will be like, seriously? Like, you need a beanie? And I'm like, hey, I'm comfortable, okay? I'm comfortable.
I love that for you. I totally feel that in every single level.
Seriously. Like, coach sometimes would be like, man, it's cold. Like, honestly, I'm just worried about you and Bella. Like, I'm just worried about you and Bella.
No,
Like,
for real. I think the most I got was to 5 layers. We had a tournament. I'm sure you remember my freshman year in Kansas in the fall, and it was October. It was 34 degrees as a high. I mean, it had to have been the high for the day, and like 20-mile-an-hour winds. And I just remember having at least 5 layers on and being probably some of the most miserable I've ever been. I was like, this is terrible.
Terrible. You talking about Kansas?
Yes, Kansas.
Oh my gosh, that was, and it was the wind too, because the wind was gusting. That was bad. That was
bad.
that was really bad. Do you remember my GTEC? Any 5 clubs?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
GTEC. Anybody? It's a heated. It's like a. You can strap it around your waist and you can put your hands in. It's actually like electrical and it warms up your hands. That thing is so nice. I brought that.
Okay, but where were we though? Where it was one of the coldest it was all year, and you had the GTEC or something, and you didn't wear it.
That's my mistake. This is my mistake. I am somehow, no matter how hard I try, I am always the most unprepared person. It's truly sad. Like like it was Bella, when it was pouring down rain in Tucson, and coach was like, Emma, where's your rain jacket? And I was like, oh, it's in the van. Like, I brought it with me. I just didn't bring it on the golf course. Why? I have no idea. We're actually in golf courts. There's no reason why not to. But so yeah, brought the GTEC and then just like left it in the hotel because it's making really good use there, right?
Oh my gosh. It has amazed me sometimes where we get to a course and I'm like, it is raining, like the whole week raining, and there'll be no rain jacket or umbrella.
Nope.
Or umbrella holder.
Well, the holder, I don't think I remembered the umbrella holder once. Like, I don't think that ever made it.
You know, it's okay. I think we've all been there though on a level. So we always knew you were relatable.
Yeah, I never learned. Yeah, I was a 5th-year senior. Never learned. But so now going into rewind, here we are retelling all these stories from when we were teammates. Rewind to when you were getting recruited. Bella, I remember vividly, we talked on a call when I was a sophomore and you would have been a junior in high school, I believe. And or very early on. So, I mean, gosh, years ago now, 3-4 years ago now. And I remember meeting you on the call, and I remember how big of a recruit you are, how big of a deal it would have been if we got you to commit here. So can you just tell me a little bit about your recruiting process and what the deciding factors were for you in choosing the University of Minnesota?
Yeah, really good question. You know, so I was recruited during COVID, and just that whole process was really crazy because of the dead period. So I actually wasn't even able to go visit a lot of schools during COVID, which was really interesting during the recruiting process, because I think a big deal is just how do you feel on campus, you know, how's safety, you know, how close is it to the golf course? Just a lot of things that it's hard to tell unless you're there.
Right.
And so that was really interesting. You know, I was able to spend a lot of time on the phone with coaches though. So that was a plus. You know, they didn't have anything else to do except talk to recruits. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And, you know, towards the end, Minnesota was one of my top picks. We had a coaching change, you know, during that year for you guys. And so I was recruited under a different person than you were. Mm-hmm. And so that was definitely different, seeing how who was going to end up being the head coach. I didn't know for a while, so it was kind of an interesting time where I was like, I really can't make a decision if I don't know who the head coach is going to be or what the changes would look like there. And I just remember really loving the team dynamics at the U. That was one of my biggest criteria. I loved talking with you and Grace. and just everyone on the team was so nice, so welcoming. It's very understated, I think, in the recruiting process or just in sports in general, how important it is to have good team dynamics and good teammates because you really are doing life with them. You're spending day in, day out on the road, at practice, at workouts, everything. And so if you don't really mesh with the people you're spending time with, that can be really hard. So that was a huge thing for me. I really was attracted to the idea that Minnesota's home, and I would be close to my family and I'd be able to represent the home school. And then also, finding out that Real was the coach and Coach Matt was her assistant, and just having them as coaches was really exciting for me. That was huge as well. So those were kind of some of my main factors, but it was definitely different. It was different because I wasn't able to take my official visit till after I committed, and a lot of the other schools I had to go there on unofficials or visit myself.
No kidding. Wow. I always I always say that it was like your class and the class above you really just so hard with COVID and recruiting. But obviously everything worked out the way that it should for you. And I couldn't be happier. But so, and not only have you chosen to come here, but your little sister, Reese McCauley, who's another superstar, is going to be a freshman this coming year. Bella, I'm like joking, but I'm also never been more serious. Sean, does he not already have like so many people knocking on his door being like, can you coach my kid?
Actually, he kind of does. He has
I
people.
bet.
He's like, I'm going. Like we'll be talking, and I'm like, oh, what are you doing today? And he's like, oh, I'm just gonna go help someone out with their golf swing. I'm like, oh, just for fun? Like you're just gonna go? He's like, yeah, it's great. It's great getting a chat with some people. Gonna help them figure out their golf swing. I'm like, okay, have fun.
Oh, that's
So
so
nice of him. He just loves the game. He's such a student of the game, and he's really good at just helping people with. Everyone has a kind of a different swing, and he's really good at analyzing that, and also just encouraging people at where they're at in their game too. So, really, really been fun to work with him as a coach.
Oh gosh, well that's so nice that he's so willing to help people. I mean, he went 2 for 2 in a pretty big way, and the people that he coached, I can't even believe. Like my dad always says, "Gosh, what did Mr. McCauley do? Seriously, those 2 girls are so good."
That's so nice. No, but I am very excited to have Reese on the team. That's going to be just an incredible experience. I think I think about it and I'm like, there's a lot of siblings in sports, obviously, but to have them on the same team, I feel like there's not many, and that'll just be memories that'll last a lifetime. Absolutely, I think, even just the team trips and rooming together and all of that. That's going to be so fun.
So fun. And you guys are already so close, and now you'll just be even closer getting to share the college golf experience and college experience together. It's going to be so amazing. I wish I could be here for the 6th year to be teammates with Reese as well, but
We wish so too.
but so Bells, when I describe your game to people, I always say that you're never going to miss a fairway, and pretty much from inside 150, especially 100, you're always going to hit it in super tight to the flag. And when your putter's on, you're probably going to shoot in the low 60s. So as far as technique, when specifically with how good you are inside 100, do you have a system that you use? Do you have a clock system or anything that you use for your wedge distances?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yes, I see what you're saying. I spend a lot of time, as you said, like 100 yards in it. That's really where I spend a lot of time. I think when I was at the US Open in 2021, I had my dad actually had a conversation with one of the Jutanagard sisters, actually her caddy, and he was saying that she spends about 80% of her time 120 yards in it. And that's coming from one of the best players in the world. And so I was like, if that's good enough for her, that's good enough for me. So I spend a ridiculous amount of time on the putting green, around the green. And like I said, I'm a very field player, so it's not as much technical as you would think, just kind of feeling different shots. But I would say when it comes to specifically wedge distances, it's kind of almost just like muscle memory. You almost have an idea of, okay, just past waist high, is 40 yards. A little bit further back is 50 yards, whatever, all the way up. And so but just continuing to do that repetitively was really ingrained in me. And eventually, you can get within a couple of yards, at least at a short distance. And so that's kind of what I just like to do. And it's nothing special. It's really just being on the range or by a short game area and just doing it again and again for a couple hours. And you're like, all right, now I feel pretty good about my 40-yard shots.
Right. Definitely.
But yeah, it's I think it tends to be a little bit overcomplicated. I think if you're if as long as you're working on it and you're putting the time in, it'll definitely come. I would also say that everyone has a different philosophy to how do they go about it, and some people are a little bit more technical. One thing that I definitely want to continue to improve on over the next couple of years is just my variety of shots. I'm a very stock shot kind of player, which is really good for Midwest courses, and I would say I even do fine in Florida courses. But sometimes when the greens are raised, at least I saw at the national championships in California, sometimes when the greens are raised and around the greens, it can be a little harder with low shots, and that tends to be more of my tendency around the greens. And so being able to just work on a variety, I think, will be really helpful for me going forward.
Yeah, well, I remember we were having that conversation a lot with the bounce on your wedge too, and
yeah,
the importance and the ability to get it up super, super high when we were messing around in our indoor facility.
Yeah, you were schooling me with the 21 game. I said we got to go back to the other wedge. We got to go back.
Well, biggest upset in the history of the game. But and how about with the driver? Seriously, whenever I see you miss a fairway, I probably audibly gasp, oh, what happened? Oh my God. So I've seen you hit both draws and cuts. You hit it pretty darn straight most of the time. Do you have a stock shot that you hit with the driver every single time, or do you switch it up based on how the hole is shaped?
I would say I have a stock shot in general and not just with driver. It's almost always a draw. I can hit a cut if I need to. Sometimes I'll wake up and on the range, there's a little bit more cuts, and I'm like, oh, I guess we're going with that today. But most of the time, I always just try to hit a stock draw, and that's actually really nice sometimes on the golf course, because one thing you want to feel in tournament golf is just comfortability, and knowing that you can always go back to that draw is really key for me. So when I pick out an aiming point and I'm, even if I'm not as confident in my game, I don't have to worry about that because I know that I'm always going to hit that draw.
Right.
So that part's really nice. Getting to that point, it's really just repetitive for me on my golf swing. I spend a lot of time just working on the same things, and if you can get it to that point, it's a lot more easier to rely on that and be consistent and be comfortable on the golf course with the shot you have. But other days you wake up and it's not going the way you want, and you just have to learn to play with what you have. I think it might be Jack Nicklaus who said that the range session is used to warm up and to just see what you're working with that day. Right. We're not robots, so waking up and sometimes it's cut, sometimes it's draw, sometimes it's snap hooks, and you just got to figure out a way to get around.
Right. No, could not agree more. So true. Well, Bells, I really, 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 and this is something that I've always wanted to do, to sit down and just pick your brain about this, and this is the perfect time to do it. Bella, clearly you have something that the vast majority of people do not have. Not only are you capable of shooting rounds as low as 63, 64, 65, but you've done that in the highest pressure situations. You've performed under pressure more times than I can count, so many times that I've witnessed firsthand, from state tournaments to US juniors to the US Open qualifier, coming down the stretch with mid to low 60s rounds with one stroke on the line for the win, and you've performed. When was the first time that you really proved to yourself that you could perform when the pressure was at an all-time high?
That's a really good question. I would say let me just think. I would say at a small level, when I was 12, I won the 12 and under championship, and just the feeling of winning, I think is a really key feeling in competitive golf. we all play to win, right? But knowing what that feeling is like and knowing what it's like under pressure to be close to winning and actually having to accomplish that is another feeling. And so I think doing that at a young age was super helpful for me. Another, I would say, really critical point that kind of took another level than that was qualifying for the US Open
Yeah.
in 2021, and I was actually quite a few strokes behind going into the last 9 holes, and I came through the last 9. I think I shot 4 under or something last night to make it by 1. And so having some of those moments, like I said, just knowing what it's like to be under pressure and being able to perform is it's very nice to have that feeling of being like, okay, I know what it's like, and I can go back to that because I've done it time and time again. And so even just as uncomfortable as it might be in the moment, putting yourself in those kind of positions is really helpful for future golf
Totally.
or any sport in general.
Totally. Well, and the reason why I ask is because as we know, as we see, as we witness, even at the highest level, it's so hard to get that first win, that first major, qualify for that first tournament, even make your first birdie, all of it. But it's like once you do it, then you keep doing it and you do it over and over and over and over again. And like once you prove to yourself, I mean, I've done this before, I've been here before, then it changes everything. So it's interesting to hear you say that, like, when you win the 12 and under championship, it's like, it makes me think that, you know, maybe for any parents who are getting their kids in golf, like if you can put your kid in tournaments and they can win small junior tournaments, it's getting them that winning feeling, that those pressure situations, even though, you know, nothing is really at stake. It's all just for fun. It's all just for learning, but still I mean, it's the biggest learning moment.
No, absolutely. And, you know, when I came to college, obviously it's another level. I mean, every single tournament you're playing against 80 plus girls that are all playing very well. And so to be at the very top and actually edge that out and win those events, that's crazy. So going all freshman year, I didn't win any, which, you know, I wasn't, that was definitely my goal, is to win an event, but I wasn't you know, too disappointed because I knew how difficult it was. But then coming into my sophomore year, winning the first event, that was just so encouraging for me, because that's why we play golf, and that's or at least competitive golf. And, you know, being able to do that at the start of the freshman year definitely allowed the rest of the year kind of set a tone for it.
For sure. So Bells, I just have to know what goes on in your head. And this is the perfect time to ask you. I remember going into last year's regional, when you qualified for last year's regional as an individual, you were outwardly saying like, oh, you know, it's so hard to qualify. I don't think I'll qualify. And then you shot 74 at the first round and followed up with and after you shot 74, you're like, yeah, I probably won't qualify. And then followed up with a 67, 68. Then this year you started with not won your regional, but qualified for the national championship, got that spot. And then this year started with a 5 over 77, then a 1 over 73 better. And then final day shot a 7 under 65 to take second place and go to the national championship yet again as an individual, back-to-back years. I actually wanted to find the stat, but I couldn't figure it out. I've been saying for the last couple of weeks now, ever since you did it, I'm like, I want to know how many people have qualified as an individual for the national championship back-to-back years. Because seriously, that is an unbelievable. Anybody who knows anything about college golf is like, knows that is an unbelievable accomplishment. So, I mean, just cannot give you enough praise and, I mean, admiration, everything that you've done. So impressive. But, I mean, the final rounds, even if you got off to a slow start, I just got to know what takes over for you in that final round. What is it?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't really know. I think it's just gut instinct, and just being in those positions enough and then being able to go from there. It's weird because it's not like I put more pressure on the last round or anything. I just kind of go into it and try to do my best most of the time. But I will say that mid-round, when there's I know what I need to be at, sometimes that definitely spurs me on even more.
Okay, yeah, see, that's super interesting. Like, So you don't necessarily approach the final round any differently,
No.
but once you know you're within striking distance, you
Yes.
sort of approach that differently.
Yeah, so for example, this year at regionals in the final round, I was playing good. At first when you're starting, you kind of just have to feel where the game's at that day, and I was like, okay, feels pretty good. I'm a couple under on the front. And then heading into the back, after 15, I asked coach and I said, hey, where am I at? I know I'm close. Where am I at here? And she said, you're one back with 3 to go, and the leader is actually in the clubhouse already. So it's just you out here. And I was like, okay, all right, I know what I need to do. So I birdie 16, par 17. And then I walked up to Coach Matt and I said, Coach Matt, I hate playoffs. Like, I don't want to do playoffs. I hate playoffs. I hate it. He goes, do something about it then. And I go, okay. So then didn't hit it that close. I hit it to like 25 feet, made the putt. Didn't have to do a playoff.
It was one of the most electric videos I've seen in my entire life. Like, I was going crazy watching this live on Golfstat and then seeing that video afterwards. I was going to bring up that story because Coach she told me this whole story about how you're coming down the stretch of the final round. I mean, mind you, you shot the lowest round of the tournament by four strokes. And she's like, yeah, so get this, Bella's coming on the last hole, and she's like, oh, I hate playoffs. And I guess that then we'll just make birdie to go 7 under. Like, I actually can't even fathom how like awesomely, insanely, impressively hilarious that is. Like, that is so funny. And I mean, Coach also told me a funny story about the Big Ten championship, and even coming off after your first round after the Big Ten championship, it was 1 over, and you're like, yeah, played pretty well. You had a great attitude, but like then 2 days later, you shoot 9 strokes better. You shoot 8 under par, 64 in the final round to win the Big Ten championship. And I mean, it was so much fun to be there and be with you during it all. Tied the tournament course record, just absolutely unbelievable. But Coach said that coming down the final hole, and we obviously were all standing there watching you, and Coach went and approached you, and I was like, what is Coach doing? Like, Bella 8 under par, why is she getting in her face right now? Like, what is she thinking? Like, you don't get in her zone right now, you don't get in her bubble. Like, she's doing something like magical right now. But Coach said that you actually called her over and said, like, where am I at? Do I need to make birdie? Whatever. And she said that you had like a specific shot that you would have hit if you needed to make birdie as opposed to if you needed to make par. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I just kind of talked with Coach and I was like, hey, like, I know I'm close. I don't really know where I was at. I had zero idea. I knew the cameras were following me, so I had to have been pretty good. But I really had no idea if I was leading by a lot, if I was losing by a lot. I didn't know. So I said, Coach, hey, like, I need to know where I'm at here. She's like, okay, like, what? Like, afterwards, she's like, why did you need to know? And, so I believe I hit an 8-iron into that green because I knew I needed to make par to at least like continue on with a potential playoff or whatever was going to happen, at least tie with the co-champions. And but I knew if I needed birdie, I was actually going to be a little bit more aggressive to that pin. And so the way this pin was, it was a front pin. It's a little bit, there's a little bit of false front with some fringe, and then there's a bunker to the right. And so my plan was to hit 8-iron kind of more to the middle of the green, 2-putt par. Whereas I knew if I needed birdie to tie or to win, I was going to actually club down, be a little bit more aggressive on the line, and try to get really close to the pin and hopefully not come up short. So that was kind of my game plan in there. But then I knew since I was already tied, I was like, hey, I'm going to just try to get out of here with a par.
Yeah, got it. So, well, and with that being said, making that decision that you wanted to make par on that hole and this trend of your final rounds just being insanely low, whether it was for a win or for trying to qualify for the national championship, are you taking that approach when you know that maybe you thought you were so far out of it that you're like, hey, I might as well just fire at every pin? Is that the mindset that you had in Auburn at your regional or most of the round of the final day at Big Tens?
I would say Like I said, the mindset doesn't normally change. I would say I almost always have a mindset of trying to just go at most pins. That one was a little bit different though, just because of the circumstances, and I just wanted to kind of have an idea of where I was at going into the last hole and knowing exactly what I needed to do. But with 54 holes ahead of you, I typically don't have like too much of a mindset. I'm like, just try to aim at pins here and see what happens. But kind of going back to golf IQ that I mentioned earlier, there's definitely pins that I know I can't go at and ones that I know I can. So
Right.
going into a hole, I'll see it, and depending on how I like the hole, what club I have in, and where the pin is located, I'll determine if I'm going to go at the pin or not.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's not necessarily a mindset for a day, it's more of just shot by shot.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got it. Well, it's kind of interesting because, with you taking it super deep on these final days, normally day 3 pins are some of the hardest pins, but those are the ones you're going at.
Actually, honestly, they were the hardest pins, but I knew I was so far out of it. I was like, you know what? Might as well go for things, see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
You know, normally I'm still pretty aggressive in all the days, but I was like, well, might as well be especially aggressive. Sometimes it's an unintentional too. Sometimes I'll pull it a little bit and I'm like, oh, it's actually going right at the pin.
Yeah. That's what the pros say too, that they're never is if it's a really, what people call a sucker pin, they're not going to try to go right at it. Most of the time.
Yeah,
If they do, it's because they tugged it or pushed it a little bit.
sometimes it was unintentional how good it ended up.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, Bells, before we wrap up here in our final 5 questions, I got to ask you one more thing. I know that we've had this conversation a million times, just you and I, about you having aspirations outside of playing professional golf. But after this clinic that you've put on over the last month or so, are you really not thinking about it anymore?
For me, I think just in golf in general and in life in general, I try to just take it one step at a time. I've always just viewed it as 1 year at a time. And so for me right now, I'm really just trying to focus on the next year of college golf and enjoying that and trying to play the best of my abilities. A lot of things can happen in a couple years. So just trying to take it step by step and enjoy that and then see what happens.
So maybe golf now.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, gosh, it's funny. I'm not going to lie to you. When Grace and I were sitting here watching the scores, we're like, and she's really not going to play pro golf. Like, she can do something that, like, she can do things that lots of people who choose to play professional golf can't do. It's remarkable. And I mean, who's to say, maybe if professional golf's not your passion, it's not your passion. Hallie Ledbetter and I talked a lot about this on my podcast with her. At the end of the day, if it's not what you want to do, it's not what you want to do. If it's not your lifestyle, that's totally fine. But I was just curious because you definitely have what people call that it factor.
No, thank you so much. I love golf and I know I'll always keep it in my life. I think it'll be interesting to see how the next couple of years progress. I would say definitely one of the most difficult things about pro golf in general is just like you mentioned, the lifestyle. And so, when time comes to and making that decision, it'll be interesting to see. But right now, just trying to enjoy the moment.
Love it. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you got lots to look forward to. So Bells, now here we got our 5 clubs, 5 questions for you before I'll send you on your way. But number 1, who has been a golfer that you have looked up to since you started playing?
Easy, absolutely. Amy Olson. She is now a retired LPGA golfer from North Dakota. She was homeschooled like me. She played for her home state. She's I've actually played with her. From everything I've witnessed and from everything I've heard, she is an incredible human being, even more so than a golfer. She's just definitely someone I admire both on and off the golf course.
Wow. Love it. Love it. All right. Number 2, besides, I know rest is really big for you before events. I know you love getting your 9 to 11 hours of sleep if you can. Besides that, do you have any superstitions?
I don't have superstitions. Yeah, I don't have any at all. I'm very routine oriented though. So having my routine is really key and doing things that I know have worked well for golf, having protein before rounds so I'm not hungry during the round or a certain amount of practice is just more routine, but I wouldn't say I have any superstitions.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah, I always proved my superstitions wrong. I would. So then I was like, okay, at the end of the day, it's just
Didn't
about
work. It didn't work.
All right. Number 3, what's been your favorite memory at the University of Minnesota so far? It can be with me. It doesn't have to be with me. I won't take offense. But
Oh gosh, that's a really hard question. I would just say, you know, some of the best memories are not even on the golf course and just with the team. Team van rides and team being with you guys at the airport or just all of that. Like, that's definitely some of the best memories. Laughing about you not bringing an umbrella to Augusta when it's pouring rain, that's a pretty good memory. But just honestly, the best ones are off the golf course and spending time with you guys.
oh, I couldn't agree more. We got a pretty funny team too.
Oh yeah.
Got a lot of goofies on the team, so so we always had fun all the time. We had fun.
Oh yeah.
We had a great team. I couldn't agree more. I can't remember if I said I agree with you or not, but having your coach and your teammates 100% makes or breaks your college experience. You can go to what you thought would have been your dream school. If you don't gel with your coach, with your teammates, you're not going to be happy. That's always what I say too, is one of, if not the most important factor when choosing a school.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
All right. So number 4, Bella, I got to ask a question about this. You and I bond over it all the time. I know how much you love shopping. We love to talk about it. If you had to pick, what's your absolute favorite store that you could not live without?
Aritzia, for sure.
I knew it.
Hands down. That or Starbucks. I have a Starbucks here right now. I don't think I could do without those lemonades.
I don't know.
It gets me through bad days. It really does. Those long grind sessions.
But
Aritzia for sure. Like, I wouldn't have a wardrobe without it.
That's actually exactly what I was going to guess. I told my mom I was going to ask you that question, and she was like, probably Lululemon. I was like, I think she's going to say Aritzia.
Nah, definitely Aritzia. Definitely.
Starbucks, the strawberry acai lemonade will never not make me think of you. It always will be.
Oh, thank you. I really don't think I ever didn't order it this year, which is maybe not good considering how much sugar it has, but it's okay. It's okay. We're treating ourselves.
You've earned that, to say the very least. But so, final question, Bella, you have achieved so much in your career prior to college, and then now even just in the last 2 years since we've been teammates. What's been the highlight of your career so far?
Specifically golf related? Yeah. Highlight of my career was winning Big Tens, hands down. That's just one of the things in when you're growing up, you're just like, okay, you're hypothetical, making a putt in the dome, and you're like, okay, this is to win the Big Ten championship, right? And especially once I committed and I was following the Big Ten leaderboards during your sophomore and junior year and stuff, and I was looking forward to playing in it, and it was just that's just a dream come true, really. And being able to win it, I've been blessed in a lot of experiences in golf, but being able to win an event like that, I think that's just something you'll carry with you always, whether you continue to play golf down the road or not. That's just always something you'll have.
Totally. Wow. And I could not be happier for you. It was the best ever to watch that happen. And you're 100% right. You're going to be a Big Ten champion for life. Like, that is so cool. That is so cool. Well, Bells, thank you so much for joining me today on 5 Clubs. I love you. It's been an honor to be your teammate and your friend. I'm going to cry.
Oh.
But I can't wait to see everything that you're going to do, and you're awesome. So thanks so much for the time today.
No, I just appreciate being on. It's always been an honor just to watch you in your career and what you're continuing to do. So I'm just glad I can be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Bella McCauley, for joining me today on 5 Clubs. It's been an absolute honor to be teammates with such a great person and such a great player and such an amazing friend. So keep an eye out for Bella 5 Clubs listeners, and keep an eye out for the Gopher women's golf team. The full McCauley sister duo is entering college golf, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. So thanks again, Bella. Five Clubs listeners, if you don't already know her name, this is one you're going to really want to look out for and you are going to keep seeing. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on Five Clubs.